Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidiri. And we're going to be having an interesting conversation in a bit. We'll be focusing on the issue of free speech, particularly in the UK's healthcare system, which has come under a lot of scrutiny after Dr. Nadeem Crowe, a British-Jordanian emergency doctor who was suspended from the Royal Free London NHS Trust. This was over social media posts supporting Palestine. Dr. Crowe's case raises critical questions about the rights of NHS employees to voice out political opinions, particularly concerning Israel's actions in Gaza. Despite facing immediate suspension and pressure, to stay silent, really. He fought back and has since been reinstated. But his experience highlights a broader issue. Are NHS workers being unfairly targeted for their views? And what does this mean for free speech, employment rights, and just the principle of medical ethics? We've all seen the images. We've all seen the videos coming out of Gaza. We've all seen the conditions that health workers have to work under. And it's quite amazing that their colleagues in the industry are treated the way that they are in the UK. And joining us right now is Dr. Nadeem, who'll be helping us to discuss this ordeal, the wider implications of healthcare professionals, and why he believes his case is more it's more than just his reinstatement, but it's about justice for all of the NHS workers. And is joining us via a virtual platform. Doc, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I think it's a really important conversation to have. So thank you.
Pleasure's all ours. I think we can just start with, your personal experience that ultimately led to, your suspension. If you can take us back to that moment where you were suspended, how did you find out, and what was the reasoning given to you at that time?
So, I think that's why this story is so, I guess insane to me and others who hear it. I was at work. I've worked at the Royal Free Hospital for about 15 years. It was also my medical school for the 6 years before that. And I'd arrived at work and I was about 2 hours into a ward round, as I normally would be, and received an email just because I happened to look at my phone from the responsible officer who sort of is the conduit between NHS trusts and the General Medical Council. And it said that some concerns had been raised and that I'd been suspended with immediate effect pending a meeting. And there was no further information than that, other than an offer to bring a representative from my union if I wanted, and that I would, hear from her PA as to what the next steps were. So I had to walk around the hospital asking colleagues whether they knew why I'd been suspended. I was then sent home, like a sort of dog with my tail wagging behind me, not really knowing what I'd done. And obviously the assumption is, or the fear is, that you've actually hurt a patient or brought somebody to physical harm. I then, at the advice of my union, contacted the trust again and said, look, I can't, work out which representative to bring if you can't tell me what it's about. Mm-hmm. And again, the reason for the suspension was refused, saying that I would be told when I got to the meeting, which was eventually held at 5 p.m. the following day. And it wasn't actually until that meeting that I was presented with the reasoning, which was that an anonymous person had raised concerns about my posts on social media, and that they could be potentially upsetting. And that's the explanation that I was given, and nothing more than that, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And just generally, for you personally, why was it so important for you to, speak out about what's happening in Palestine and to the people of Gaza, to voice out your solidarity with the healthcare workers who are working under extreme difficult conditions? From a personal point of view, why did you feel so passionate for the people of Gaza and the struggles, and your colleagues who are doctors that are, helping to mitigate in whatever little way the genocide essentially that's taking place?
Look, I was born in Jordan. My whole family live in Jordan. I have family and friends who are Palestinian, and the story of the Nakba, the refugees from Palestine that are now in Jordan in their hundreds of thousands. This has always been part of my psyche. It's always been something that has been in my life, and something that I've been very educated on and very informed on, and therefore hold a strong opinion. And October the 7th for a cohort of people is a very convenient start date. It's the date that the accusations of rape, and the accusations of beheaded babies, and the accusations of babies in ovens, and all of this stuff started to come out and started to demonize people that are me. It's the Palestinian, Jordanian, Lebanese, Syrian, all of these Arabs, we're all the same blood. And to hear my people, for want of a better term, being smeared with what, we assumed a lot of it was lies when it happened. And as more and more information's come out, at the genocide, and as a lot of people like to say, every accusation is actually, the truth of Israel, basically. It was really important to me to be one of the voices that stood forward and said, this isn't true, this is lies, you're making generalizations about people, you're accusing everybody of being terrorists. And then when you put on top of that the fact that I've been a doctor for years, and we're watching a healthcare system being decimated, hospitals being targeted, and then this generic repeated accusation of, oh, well, it was a Hamas control and command center. We've never seen any proof of any of these accusations. When we've seen, patients being burnt alive in their hospital beds, and that somehow there are a group of people that speak against this and say, this is wrong. We're doctors. We should be shouting out that this is not how to treat human beings. We're perpetrated as terrorist supporters or Hamas supporters. But when you have people who have Zionist beliefs saying that actually this is justified, and, it's self-defense, and these people dying are unfortunate and sad collateral, this cohort of people are being protected. And I'm afraid that my moral standing as a human being, as a son, as a friend, as a nephew, as a brother, as all of these things, and as a doctor, tells me that I'm not just going to be silenced because there's this sort of power struggle, or there's this fear put on me that I might lose my job or I might be suspended. This is humanity being redefined. As far as I'm concerned, we've started again. We've got a new justification of evil, or what's allowed to happen to human beings. And I have to say, when I was sitting in that meeting being told, well, it could be upsetting, I really was at the point where I didn't mind if I was to lose my medical license, if the options were speak out the truth, speak out for my sense of morality and what humanity should be, versus continue to work for a hospital trust that seems to believe that me calling out all of these atrocities meant that I could no longer operate as a doctor or would need to be investigated. That's where I stand on it, always have and always will.
Were you at any point formally accused of any kind of misconduct, or was your suspension just based purely on those vague concerns about your social media activity?
So I never got to see the social media posts that were of concern during that meeting, and I never got to see the accusation that was raised against me. It was just sold to me as could be upsetting and could question my professionalism. Now, suspension in the NHS is something that's really reserved for the most extreme problems, but it's something that isn't even used when patients come to harm. I did a freedom of information request on the hospital, and in the last 5 years, 2 people had been suspended. And I have to assume that one of those people was me. And I'm aware of multiple serious clinical incidents, some of them that have been in the UK press, that didn't lead to suspension of doctors being investigated for their ability to give clinical care. So I would have expected that there was a robust sequence of events and discussion that had happened that led to a decision that's life-changing. It's life-changing as a doctor when you're suspended. It really shakes your world. And that when I arrived at the meeting, all of those steps would have been clearly explained to me, who had made the decisions, why, on what basis, and what risk I was to continue working in the hospital. So the fact that none of those things were presented to me until I went through multiple emails, multiple, subject access requests, freedom of information requests, I didn't even get to see that the accusation against me was anti-Semitism until a freedom of information request came back 4 months later. So my question will always be, why did all of that need to be withheld after such an extreme action was taken against me?
And I think you've mentioned something quite important. In one of the articles that I've read, that your case is now almost part of a larger legal battle. What are some of the key legal arguments you're making, and what do you hope to achieve from them?
I mean, I think the main thing for me was that for one of the first times in my life, I sat as somebody who is mixed race and is from a Middle Eastern background, and has, based on the David Miller case that had a lot of press attention, has a what's been considered in court protected belief, which is the belief of anti-Zionism. And the reality is that in terms of discrimination, having a conversation about social media posts in relation to Gaza with somebody born in Jordan, with all their family in Jordan, has a different effect. I perfectly accept that anybody, whether you're Middle Eastern background or not, can have anti-Zionist beliefs. But when you're worried about your family, and when you're worried about a history that you're very tied into, it has a significant impact on you. And for me, that is a representation of discrimination, be it direct or indirect. It's also a concern that the trust I've worked in for 15 years serves a huge Jewish population. If I was an anti-Semite, I wouldn't have chosen to work there for 15 years and provide healthcare to a fantastic, vibrant Jewish community that just represent human beings like the rest of us. There are great Middle Eastern people and terrible Middle Eastern people and friendly people and fat people and thin people. It's all the same. We're just people. So the fact that I was sitting in a hospital that I've served for so many years, having a covert accusation of anti-Semitism because of my justified and widely held by the general population anti-Zionist beliefs, to me, that is discrimination. Beyond that, the fact that I've worked there for 15 years and feel that, one, I can no longer go back to that trust to work. Two, having escalated this to the NHS, who defended their actions, I wouldn't work in an NHS job until somebody takes responsibility or justification is given to me as to why this attitude or treatment was deemed to be acceptable. And I see that as a form of constructive dismissal.
I want to focus on the NHS themselves. We've seen how they've gone about publicly criticizing Russia over their war out in Ukraine without any, consequences. They were outright and very, very blatant. We've all seen the ads on social media and on, television. Would you say this is an obvious case of a double standard when it comes to pro-Palestine speech, the same way we see in the media sometimes the reporting, when you look at how maybe the Russia-Ukraine war is being reported on by mainstream media, and how, the Palestine, literally a genocide that is unfolding in front of us, how that story is being reported on. Is it that obvious biasness and double standards that we've always been talking about when it comes to Israel and the crimes against humanity that they're committing against the people of Palestine?
1000%. I mean, when the invasion of Ukraine began, we all, as human beings, similarly to when we were all in the same boat with COVID, had this feeling that we all understood what right and wrong was, what the correct moral compass was, and we all had our faces in those Ukrainian flag profile pictures on Facebook, and people had badges of Ukraine on, and nobody was saying, well, how do the Russian patients feel, or have you misinterpreted this conflict, or is there more to this history than you understand? Nobody said that. And we can't distract from the fact that though the double standards applied there, the double standards don't apply in any field, in any public social media domain, in any press domain, anywhere, more than when it comes to protecting those who have belief and Zionist belief and this certain notion of Israel versus Muslims, Arabs and Palestinians. The fact that we've now got NHS trusts being lobbied by groups like UK Lawyers for Israel, who purport themselves to be this group that stands up for the rights and interests of Israel, but within in England, essentially saying to trusts that the Palestinian flag is now a sign of terrorism and fear to any Israeli and Jewish patient. I'm afraid we've got Palestinian doctors working in our hospitals, some of them who have fled from Gaza. So if you're telling me that the flag of a population or of a doctor actually working within the trust is now a symbol of fear and terrorism, that is clearly discrimination. Palestine is and always has been a country. Palestinians are people of a race, and you can't now symbolize their existence as terrorism. And the reality is that I know for sure that with all of these people who are being doxxed and harassed by these groups that lobby for Israel and lobby, Israeli interests, the fear is the accusation of anti-Semitism. Nobody fears an accusation of anti-Palestinianism or anti-Islam or anti-Arabism. These things aren't feared because they can sort of be brushed off. And what I'm trying to do is really say to people, you must now fear those accusations, because people like me are going to take a stand, and we are going to name and shame you, and we are going to take legal action the same way that all of these people in the public eye and these sort of powerful lobby groups think that they can just remove anybody from society who doesn't have the beliefs that we now globally hold as being crimes against humanity. And I'm prepared to lose whatever I have to lose to do that, because this is a pivotal time in history. If we don't stop this now, if we don't change things now, it's going to propel even faster than it is right now. And I and other doctors, cases like Dr. Adwan and Dr. Rehiana Ali, and all these people who have been through longer suspensions and investigations than me, who you then look at cases of, Professor Liz Lightstone, a high-profile renal doctor, who posted a photo which basically said, somebody in Gaza today is deciding what to wear, and posted a photograph of a meme of a wardrobe with a uniform, a doctor's uniform, and a Hamas uniform. And we all know that the suggestion was that those roles are interchangeable in her eyes, that somebody in Gaza can represent any of those people at any time. And anybody who follows me on X can see that the GMC responded to, the General Medical Council responded to a formal complaint a colleague put in and said that this doesn't to them represent a conduct issue. Well, there's the gold standard. If you can go as far as that image as a Zionist doctor in this country and post a picture like that thousands of us found as Arabs, as Muslims, as Palestinians, as Jordanians offensive, and that's okay. We've now got it in black and white as to what the standard is, and we expect all of us to be treated under that same gold standard.
You had to deactivate your X account at some point. Do you feel that NHS has almost set a precedent where the employees of the NHS will ultimately force themselves into some kind of self-censorship because of fear of what happened to you and to others?
This is sort of a head on a stick kind of process where it's sort of like medieval. It's like, look what Nadeem did, this is what happened to him, but actually if you delete your account, we can forgive you and you can come back to work. And a colleague of mine was treated in a slightly different way, where he was presented with a legal document to sign to say that he'd delete his post and never post again. Yes, I do believe that we're being used as examples, but the problem with that is that if the solution was delete your posts and this all goes away, had this been an actually genuine concern or a genuine accusation of anti-Semitism that was thrown at me by somebody who had a real concern about me, well, the Trust and the NHS didn't deal with the problem for me or for the person that made the accusation. They essentially wanted the publicity of the Trust being associated with a doctor who was against the atrocities in Gaza to be silenced. They didn't actually seem to care how it had affected me or affected the person that accused me of something, because if they had, they would have gone through with the accusation, with the investigation, whether or not I had agreed that I would delete my account or delete my posts. And similarly, being asked to delete posts of something that you're then going into an investigation for made absolutely no sense to me. I wasn't told in the meeting, delete your posts and then this will all end. It was, you're going to be investigated for the next X number of weeks, but we would also ask you to delete your posts. So the whole thing was this sort of almost harassment or kind of insidious suggesting of, you need to do X, Y, and Z and basically silence yourself, but we're still going to investigate you. So yes, I think myself, my colleague, other people that have been, in the press a lot because of accusations from, as I've said, UK Lawyers for Israel. I think the hope is that if you take doctors who are people that are held in high moral standard, and you try and make us seem like anti-Semitic, murderous lunatics in the press, then the feeling is that that is an achievement. So it's very bad publicity for the or the anti-Zionist world. So for me, it's really important that we come forward as voices of people who are intelligent, eloquent, care about people, care about humanity, and actually don't get our social media posts just represented however these groups want them to be represented. To sort of, because that's a harder war to win. And I think they're going to start losing the war, because a few of us do have the confidence to say, this is me, I'm Nadeem, this is what I did, this is what I think, and I stand by it. And you have absolutely no right or no reason to be able to hold that against me. And I want to be an example to other doctors out there, so that if they're targeted, they have an example to follow. The fear is what's being weaponized. If you remove the fear, then there is no weapon anymore.
And just lastly, before I let you go, Doc, what are the next steps in your legal battle right now, and how can people support it? And also, looking at the bigger picture, do you believe the UK is seeing, dare I say, a dangerous shift in how free speech is handled, particularly within public institutions?
Yes. So, the first part of your question, the next stage is the preliminary hearing, which is at the end of April, which is really where the courts and the two sides have a few hours to sort of weigh up the case and work out exactly what claims can go through. There have been multiple opportunities for the trust to settle with me outside of court, but actually it's become really important to me that this isn't settled outside of court. This is settled in an arena where people can publicly join and see what they have to say for themselves, and see what I have to say in my own words. Yes, we are. I have no doubt now living in the UK in some topsy-turvy dystopia, where we're going to end up where all of the people being investigated or even put in prison for things that they've said, it's going to be that all of the people with higher levels of morality are in prison, and the ones that have no morality are the ones that are walking the streets, which is a very scary place to be, particularly within healthcare. You know, I, as a doctor, am against the mass murder of children, mass murder of anybody, the rape of detainees. All of these things are horrific. There's no justification. And if your justification for me upsetting you is that I've pointed those things out, you need to really check yourself and look at why you're not upset about the truths being mass murder, rape, you know, and the terrorist behaviors of countries like Israel and the United States supporting them. If anybody's more interested in the case, I've got a crowd justice page, which is, you know, I'm so thankful to everybody who supported it. It's really crowdfunding what could be a very expensive court case. We've nearly hit £40,000, but I'd love to stretch that target. So if anybody searches me on X, then they'll be able to find the crowd justice linked, or I'm also on Instagram as Dr. Nadeem Crowe, and it's linked there. Or if you just go onto the crowd justice page and search my name, you'll find it there, and you can pledge, even if it's £1, 50p, every penny counts towards a case that may end up costing 60, 70, 80,000 pounds.
I think we're going to leave on that note, Doc. And we salute you for your bravery here in South Africa, and just people like you, you know, that make sure that the voices of the people of Palestine remain to be heard, and you know, they're not filtered down into the noise. So yeah, all the best, and we'll definitely look forward to catching up with you to get the latest from the case.
Thank you so much for having me.
There you go. That was Dr. Nadeem Haddadin Crowe coming to us live from London. Yeah, really interesting. And yeah, as you heard, you can follow his social media platforms if you want to get the latest from the case, and to contribute also, because as you heard, it's going to be a very, very expensive case, and every cent is going to be needed. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, news and views continues after this.